Welcome to another edition of the We Talk Chelsea podcast. Three blokes that play Sunday League football united by a love of Chelsea Football Club. Chaps, good to see you all again. How are we all keeping? No Chelsea this week, and for Charlie's get angry about. How have you been coping, Charlie? Just been getting angry at England instead?
I don't really. It's just, for me, international break is just so boring, and I'd rather just get back to club football, to be honest. Especially, I only really watch the international competitions. I don't bother watching these qualifying matches. It's just not really that exciting, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I think I remember in the mid 2000s I'd watch every qualifier, but now I cannot be bothered. I just can't be asked, genuinely. Tem, how you keeping?
Yeah, good. Just dragging on as life goes on, really, and hoping club football comes back as well.
Well, there is no game to review this week, so we can't get mad at certain tactical decisions, can't get mad at substitutions, can't get mad at starting lineups, can't get mad at certain goals. So I think the best thing to do in this scenario is just start looking at the review for this week. We're at home this week.
Yeah, we are at home this week.
Don't all speak at once. Excellent. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll throw across through to our resident grump, Charlie Harris. How are you feeling about going into? Is it? I remember you saying it's like a cycle. You kind of forget how angry you were at the end of the game, and then you get hope again. You get hope a few days leading up to it. So how are you feeling moving towards this weekend?
Yeah, and it's the same thing again. I'm sort of looking at it and going, we should be beating Aston Villa at home. We should. And certainly, if this was this time last year, we would definitely expect to win that match. But unfortunately, it's not this time last year. So I think we've got. I think that there's a lot of positives. We seem to have a pretty fit squad now, to choose from. So I hear on the grapevine Kante might be fit and back and all this sort of stuff, and there's quite a few positives, like in terms of the starting 11. There's not too many injuries. I think obviously Reece James is still out, it seems, but there's no reason we shouldn't be winning these matches. But stranger things have happened, and I think teams coming to Stamford Bridge, it's not as much of a fortress as it has been, and I think a team like Aston Villa, who are on fairly good form themselves, to be honest. Like from my understanding, they've won. Yeah. I'm just guessing the last 5 matches, they've probably won 3 or 4 of those. Sorry, I didn't get that. Sorry.
Last 3 out of their 4 they've won.
Yeah, so they're basically on the same form as us. 4, yeah. So they're on essentially the same form as us. And they're pretty well in the same table, so it's actually quite an interesting matchup already. It's probably going to be quite close.
Yeah. How are you feeling into? Is it Saturday? 5:30 kickoff?
5:30 kickoff on Saturday.
Not sure. Siri's talking to me. Off. Excellent. 5 kickoff on Saturday. How are you feeling about September leading into this Saturday?
I don't know. I don't know how to feel, to be honest. I think it's a free-for-all game, really. It's whoever shows up on the day. I don't think either team would be sort of too upset if the other team won, because, like you say, we're on similar form. We both really haven't been that good this season, and yeah, I just think like Dale just said, it's a mighty battle of 10th right now. Both teams don't look like they have anything in between them. Their manager elevates their game to our standard, and unfortunately, our manager degrades our level to their standard, really. And it's just who shows up on the day, I think.
Yeah. Who do you think should be? I'll put this question out to the both of you. Who do you think should be, the first names on the team sheet for Graham Potter coming into this Saturday? Who's an undroppable player at this moment in time?
it's probably Ben Chilwell. But I think there was one other thing I was just going to mention before I go into that is these international breaks. They have a distinct negative impact on us, and they have done over the year just because we are a squad of international players. So we don't get a full week of training this week, whereas Aston Villa, they probably only have there will be a fair amount of first team players that will still be training at their training ground in this international break and preparing for this match for 2 weeks, which we don't get. So that will make us a little bit of a difference. It always seems to do that, especially if you play on the Saturday after an international break, because obviously there's some teams that are still playing tonight, tomorrow night, Wednesday. There's teams all around the world. Some of our players will be flying off to Brazil and all this sort of stuff. So that will make a difference. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, in terms of like the undroppable player at the moment, the standout player is Ben Chilwell for us. It seems like that is the main outlet for us at the moment in terms of goal threat, and he seems really, really on it at the moment. And creativity wise, he's basically our only outlet. The rest of them just aren't quite creative enough to maybe Felix, but I would say Chilwell really. He seems like the main guy,
Yeah, Chilwell's definitely come into his own since he's got back to full fitness. In the last couple of months. I mean, what were you saying? I mean, Temba, do you agree with Charlie? Like Chilwell's undroppable, maybe Joao Felix as well. How do you feel? Who's undroppable at this point? Who do you think Graham Potter has to stick with?
Well, he has no choice but to stick with Havertz up front, unfortunately. But at the same time, he has picked up his form as of recent.
Yeah.
Possibly Badiashile is another undroppable, I think. Especially with Fofana being injured, I don't see anyone else who deserves to start over him. Chilwell's another one. And Enzo. Those are probably the 3-4 players I would say definitely will and deservedly start. I don't know how you feel about it, Tom.
I think I have to eat my words here. Kai Havertz, to me, is a player that should have been dropped a long time ago, but in the last 3 weeks, he's kind of proven his value. He's scored goals, he's got involved to being arguably the best player on the pitch. Joao Felix as well. He's another player that we have to keep with. Badiashile, minus the game against the last game that we had against Everton. I thought Koulibaly was playing well, minus that error that he made towards the end of the game. It would just be intriguing to see if we had a second goalie. I mean, we have Bettinelli, who's recently signed a contract to 2026, but he is the third choice goalie. It'd be interesting to see if Mendy was available and was fit. What would happen in that scenario? Would Potter be keen to stick with Kepa after a couple of mistakes that we've seen in the last few weeks, or do you think he would potentially wanted to rotate and maybe try Mendy out, or do you think that would be something that would be on Potter's mind if he was available?
No, unfortunately, I still think you would keep with Kepa. I think it suits Graham Potter's play style quite a lot. You've seen Edouard Mendy's lost a lot of confidence over the last year, really. And, he does tend to hesitate on the ball a lot, which obviously won't suit a ball-playing team. Although I do think his other attributes right now are very much needed. I don't think Kepa's a good shot stopper, and nor do I think he's a good collector of crosses or dealing well with set pieces, which I think we have not been tested enough, and we're seeing glimpses more of it as of late. And I do think that will be one big advantage Aston Villa have. They're very dangerous on set pieces, obviously, with their centre-backs and centre-forward. I think that is an area of the game we really need to shore up on.
Are you willing to hazard a bet on it and say you think the set piece is going to be where we concede on Saturday?
Oh, 100%. If we're going to concede, I think it's through a counter-attack or a set piece.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, let's throw it out. Okay, so there's not much really to preview. Really, we're still early days. I guess one of the things we could touch upon is it was interesting how Reece James from the England squad for the recurring persistent injury in terms of his hamstring. Charlie, you did something afterwards. It's like Reece James not being fully fit. If you wanted to elaborate on that.
Yeah, it's not, and this isn't me being Reece James negative. It's just raising a point about contracts and things like that. Is that you know, we all moaning about. I have to go back to Mount. I said I wasn't going to mention the name Mount today, but you know, it was just a point that I was making. Is that, you know, as good as Reece James is, he's not worth anything. And the analogy I made is that, you know, Michael Schumacher is a great Formula One driver, but unfortunately, you know, he's had that injury, and you don't see him again. So he's not worth it, even though he's brilliant. He's not. It's not worth signing him up for Ferrari, is it? Because he's not going to play, so he's not going to drive. So it's similar to Reece James. Is he really worth 350 grand a week or whatever he's on if he just keeps getting injured? You've got to remember he's young as well. I mean, these young players who get injured a lot, it doesn't tend to get better for them. And if it does get better, it tends to affect their game, because what they'll end up having to do is he'll end up having to go to surgery. He'll end up having to do specialist weight training. It's slowing down a bit, or there'll be different things. I mean, Michael Owen was a prime example. Michael Owen, when he was playing, he was really good in his, you know, when he was young, up until probably his mid-20s. But he just kept getting injured. I remember he just kept getting injured for months at a time, and in the end, Liverpool went, right, well, we're gonna have to deal with this. Let's put him on weight training and all this sort of stuff. And because young Michael Owen was so reliant on pace, that was his main attribute, he lost the pace and just became a really average player after that, and finished his career stumbling over the line, essentially, for, what was it, Stoke City or someone at the end? Yeah. I mean, it became a bit of it was just a real capitulation of a career, wasn't it, towards the end? He wasn't even, I think he retired when he was in his probably early 30s. So this is what I worry about with Reece James, is that it could end up like that. And to be honest with you, he doesn't play a lot of matches for Chelsea. I mean, I reckon if you look over the years, he's probably played 50 matches in 3 years or something. He probably, honestly, I can't think that he'd played a lot more. Just seems to always be injured.
Oh, maybe it's just me, and you know what, I'm like playing devil's advocate for a lot of these, but he played, I think it was about 6 minutes. Was it on Thursday? Just gone, when we played against Italy. He came on basically just to wind the clock down towards the game. You know, do you think in some small way he might just say that he's, you know, protecting himself in terms of he doesn't want to injure himself against in England international duty, and he wants to commit fully to the cause at Chelsea and trying to get a best finish that we possibly can? Do you not think there's elements of that, Temba?
I do, but I do have to also say I agree with Charlie quite a lot. It's the specialist position he plays. I think with that sort of position, you need a good athletic body and a robust ability. Funnily enough, I think Mason Mount's sort of body build and, you know, his athleticism and how well he keeps his body, it's good for that sort of wing back role where he could run up and down, play 50 games a season and not be injured. With, obviously, we all know how big and built Reece James is. Yes, he's a fantastic athlete, but at the same time, how long can you stress your muscles under that type of pressure, running up and down the game? You know, they say it as well in professional sports. Anyone who weighs more, it usually takes them more time to recover from just game time, any sort of fatigue. It takes a person who weighs more a lot more time to actually recover from that fully. So, yeah, a player like him who, you know, he uses explosive running power quite a lot to get past players. How well can he keep his body fit and manageable throughout the rest of his career, to make sure that he doesn't constantly get injured and hamper his own career, really?
Yeah, it's like what Dale just said. I've seen this said this with Tem many times. Genuinely think James is slightly too top heavy. He's got so much upper build. He's putting pressure on his legs. I don't know about you chaps, but I'm on the heavier side, and I played football yesterday. Played 11 aside. I played 80 minutes, and this morning it was agony getting up out of bed. So maybe it could just be something. Maybe it is just something that he might need to consider at some point in the future, even if it's dropping 5 kilos just to get him down, you know, less stress on that area, you know. But we don't know his body. He might know his body a lot better than we do, so we're purely speculating at this point. Let's move swiftly on. So, big news of the week. Super Thomas Tuchel definitely not coming back to Chelsea in the immediate future. He signed a contract with Bayern Munich for 2.5 years. Julian Nagelsmann found out that he was being sacked the day before he was sacked, not from Bayern Munich, but from social media itself. Boys, how do you feel about the fact that Thomas Tuchel is definitely not anywhere near consideration? We've seen Chelsea manager brought back previously with Jose Mourinho. It could have been something in the future. But how do we feel about losing Thomas Tuchel potentially in the long term?
Even though I don't think he's
The
ever
option.
coming. Yeah. I don't think he would have come in after Potter. I think that would just be such a humiliation for the new owners. So I think if he ever was to return, Tuchel, this would be something that might happen 5 years down the line, and by that time, in the way that football management is, he won't be at Bayern Munich in 5 years' time. And we all know that Tuchel is a spiky character. There's no doubt about that. He's clearly, he is a bit of a spiky character, and a bit like Mourinho, and he will have spats with owners and things like that, and he'll probably have the same at Bayern Munich. I wouldn't surprise me if he wins in the Champions League this year, or if he wins in the Bundesliga, or wins something next year, and then he'll be back out looking for work the year after again. So yeah, I've kind of got over Tuchel now, and I think most people will agree it was a mistake to sack him, but at the same time, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, this leads to the comment that I've just put on the screen is Nagelsmann to Chelsea could potentially be an offer. Is this the time that the ownership stick will twist at this point? Do they twist and then potentially go for a young manager, 35 years old, proven, he's won the Bundesliga, he commands that kind of respect from the older players, having actually, won cups, won trophies. Is this could this be potentially something that you would consider if you were at the helm, Temba?
Nagelsmann to Chelsea. Yeah, I do. I do think that he is quite a young manager, and with 3 losses this season, who can argue he's not doing a good job? Obviously, because of how Dortmund have played this season, and maybe Bayern have dropped off in the league. I still think it's a bit harsh, considering they're still far in the Champions League. What's it, the quarterfinal? They still have a chance to win it. I think he should have been given that chance, but they decided to sack Nagelsmann because they thought Tuchel was unmissable, really. So kudos to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird situation because he said he thought he was unmissable, but he has been available since September.
Yeah,
so it was a very, very, very weird decision, I thought, considering how far they were. They're 1 point off Dortmund or something along those lines. We as Chelsea fans, we all know how great Thomas Tuchel is, and he would have been a bit. They could have made that move a lot quicker. Could that be something that Chelsea might consider doing in the summer, especially in the short in the long term? Maybe sticking with Potter until the end of the season. But I do believe there's something that you mentioned, Temba, with regards to the cost of actually getting in a new manager is astronomical, isn't it?
Yeah. So in that sort of in a double-barreled answer, first of all, I think maybe they might have been keeping tabs on Tuchel for a long, long time, and they've realised, well, Spurs have sacked him, are about to sack a manager. Maybe Tuchel might be thinking of going there. Maybe they were talking to his agent and thought, he has suitors now, he's ready to come back into management, and they've decided to act on it quickly now that they've had the feeders from his agent or whatnot. Secondly, in terms of Nagelsmann to Chelsea, I think getting him in the summer would probably be the best thing. Well, as soon as, it's July the 1st or June the 1st, whenever they want to do it, because he'll need time to have his own players, his own style of football, and, not to sort of do what we did with Potter and Tuchel and throw him in 5, 10, 15 games in the season and just let him pick up a mess that another manager's had and players he didn't exactly want. So it is a hard one. It depends if Chelsea can figure out a loophole, really, to see if they can break away from Graham Potter and try getting Nagelsmann. And that's if he wants to come to actually Chelsea himself.
Yeah, I was reading.
It's one of those weird situations. Sorry, go on, Charlie.
No, sorry. I was just going to say I was reading somewhere today. I don't know if you've read this, but not only is it going to cost something like 50 million quid to get rid of Potter, it's also going to cost because, and this is not just Potter, it's all of his cronies that he brought with him as well. So you've got basically, we're going to have to offload all these people that, and also we've spent money getting him in. So it's just the astronomical amount of money basically we're going to lose. But apparently we need to then pay Bayern Munich a fee of something like 10 million. I don't quite understand that because he's been sacked. It doesn't seem to make any sense. But apparently something to do with a clause in his contract whereby he's still getting paid by Bayern Munich even now until the end of the season. I read this somewhere, I don't know, and whoever wants to go in for him basically has to pay Bayern Munich out, even though he doesn't work there anymore. And that's apparently about 10 million quid as well, just as sort of essentially a transfer fee, plus the wages this guy's going to want. He's clearly an elite manager, not many of them out there. So he's going to be on a lot more than Potter as well. So I think it's a huge, I'm not saying a risk because I don't think you could get someone a lot worse than Potter, to be honest. I really don't. I think you'd find it hard to find someone who's worked at that level who could possibly be as bad or worse than Potter. So I think it'll be if that makes sense. Like he has managed at a much higher level than Potter and has much more going for him, I think. So unless unless it just, I don't know, it just doesn't take to English football or something, then he should be better than Potter. But whether these guys running think that he's that good that he can actually be bring us success or whatever, I don't know. Don't know how much they rate him. I don't know much about him, to be honest. All I can go on is pretty much probably what you guys can go on. I don't know much about him, but
yeah, I mean, Nagelsmann he's a very young manager, 35 years old. He's proven it in the Bundesliga. He was given the RB Leipzig role. I think it was like 30 or something like that, 30, 31. So he's one of the youngest managers. I remember that's when I first became aware of Nagelsmann. He's kind of gone through that like Jesse Marsch kind of Red Bull kind of training vibe. I think if there's going to be any sort of change, I think it's more beneficial that it's done at the end of the season. You may as well just get Chelsea across the line and then give a manager actual chance, because Tuchel came in the middle of the season. Potter's coming in the middle of the season, just past I think if you're going to make a change now, it needs to give at least 6-7 weeks over them to kind of develop their team, show the way that they want to play and go from there. But it's one of those weird situations. Let's look forward to the rest of the season here now. So how do we feel? I think we were pretty adamant that we're still not sure that we're going to aim. We're not going to reach Europe. How do we feel that we're going to, realistically, now that we have dropped points once again to Everton, Villa? We had a run of games that's coming up in the short term. Do we feel realistic that we're going to, make a late charge and hope Brentford and Fulham drop points?
I actually do think it's over for us this season. I think if we would have beaten Everton and I think going into Villa off the back of 4 wins, and if you win that one as well, and the table will look a bit different, but I do think it's over now. I think that Everton will have crushed us, to be honest. Again, I think we don't know what we're going to be walking into against Aston Villa. Realistically, I can't see us winning that convincingly if we win it at all. And the run of games that we've got towards the end of the season as well, with teams that are playing for something, I think that's the key. There'll be teams fighting for top 4s, for Premier League titles, even relegation teams will be very tough to play against. And we're in this small group in the middle with Palace, Villa, and us basically. And
Palace, I don't think you can consider Palace in that area now anymore.
Not anymore. No,
they're only 3 points up. There's only 5 points between 12th and 20th at the moment.
Yeah, so they're in the relegation. They have been dragged into it. You're right, but us and Villa basically are 2 teams that have got really not a lot to play for. I mean, so in terms of the motivation of the teams and who turns up and all this sort of stuff, it's all going to be the other team. And I think that's going to be a real issue going into the end of the season. I think we'll probably finish 10th. That's my conclusion. I think we'll probably win as many games as we lose, and so that we'll probably just finish where we are now. Which will be an awful season, you know.
Yeah, but we've had awful seasons before. But you never know; something might happen in the Champions League. Temba, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I was just looking at our fixtures, and realistically, I do only see about maybe 3 or 4 wins in that, and that's with 10 games remaining.
Yeah. What ones are those?
Okay, so the realistic wins I can see is beating maybe Brentford at home, Bournemouth away, maybe, and Nottingham Forest at home.
Yeah. Forest do have terrible away form.
Yeah, because we do have actually, I'll say Wolves as well. We've got Wolves away after Liverpool, but we do have Liverpool at home, which I think will possibly draw that, maybe draw. Got Brighton at home. I think that's another draw. We've got Arsenal away, which I don't think we have a chance.
I think we're losing that one. Yeah, the way that Arsenal
Man City away again.
Yeah, losing that one.
Yeah, and Newcastle at home.
Losing that.
You think we'll drop points against Newcastle at home?
I think they'll have too much to play for. They'll be trying to get into Europe at least, or maybe even the Champions League. Last game of the season.
They'll have too much to play for, but at the same time, they don't have previous. You know, they don't have experience in that back end of the season, and like where every scrappy little ball that they trace, every second ball like counts. So you never know. Like you do never know. It could be one of those things that might just come to us, and might not perform on the day. The flight over from Newcastle might have been a terrible flight. Chelsea fans might have been setting fireworks off outside the Chelsea hotel as they're asleep. You never know. But I think I initially, I think a few weeks back, I said I thought, there's an outside chance of us getting 7. I think that's less and less now. I think in an ideal world, I think we could probably aim for 8th. Like it looks good on paper, but at the same time, it's not Europe. The only way we're going to get Europe this year is if we beat Real Madrid, either Bayern Munich or Man City. And let's face it, it's probably going to be Bayern Munich if we do get through at that point. Because it's written in the stars, we'll face Tuchel. Let's face it, if we did get that far, I think our odds are still like.
What position would we have to finish to get Conference League?
7th.
Is it 6th or 7th?
7th.
7th, right? Okay. I mean, we are 4 points off Brighton. Yeah. But they have 2 games in hand with a plus 14 goal difference.
Yeah, and we're what's our goal difference, like 2 or something like that?
1, and theirs is 15 at the moment.
We're smashing it this season, boys.
Yeah,
2023, 2024 is our year.
Yeah, it's the only reason we're above Villa right now, because they have a -4 goal difference, and Fulham have a +1 goal difference, coincidentally. Yeah, so next to us is Brentford with a +9, and below that is Palace with a -16. So, in a sense, our goal difference could actually decide our position between 10th, 9th, or 8th.
And you never know. We've just started scoring goals again, so we could start creeping back up again. We just need to make sure if we do lose games, we're not losing 3-4-0, and having our pants pulled down. Let's look forward. So, chaps, obviously the latest with Mason Mount. We'll briefly touch upon that. Still no contract signed. Doesn't look likely that he's probably going to be re-signing with ourselves, unfortunately. So let's kind of think, when it comes to the summer, something's got to be done. If Mount does go, Charlie, do you feel we stick with some of the players that we have, like the Chukwuemekas, the Conor Gallaghers that we do have under contract still, or do you think that Chelsea do need to go make a statement sign in that area to replace a name like Mason Mount?
Not necessarily. I don't think Mason. I think the reason that a lot of people want Mason Mount to stay is it's not just how good he is as a player. It's also obviously what he represents as the face of Chelsea, essentially. And I think that's what we'll miss as much as him on the pitch. I think to be honest, there was always going to be a clear out over the summer anyway. And if it's not him, it'll be someone else. And if it's someone, and if it is him, someone else might stay. So I think we need to reduce the squad size anyway. So it's not a disaster if he goes in terms of like what we'll be missing. There's areas of the squad that are weaker than others. we need a full-time striker who can bang in goals. That's fairly obvious. We need backups for Reece James. That's obvious. There's a few positions that we need a goalkeeper, I would say. And so there's a few positions that we need extra help. But we have got this Nkunku guy coming in, haven't we? And I don't know much. Again, I don't know much about him, but he's a kind of Mount player.
He's a Mount type player. Yeah, he's basically like he's like a number 10 essentially, but he can play on the wing, and he has been known to play up front as well. I don't think he'd play up front for Chelsea. I'd be very surprised if he did. I think it would be, if he was to slot into this season, what you'd see, it would be Havertz in the middle, it would be Felix on one side, and then Nkunku on the other side. That's the kind of area that he plays. He's probably the person I completely forgot about Nkunku. You make a very good point there. The one player that I was thinking of, and I don't know if you agree or not, Temba, but was to fulfill a quota in terms of an English player, James Maddison. I don't know how you feel about, he's wanting out at Leicester. We do have a good history of buying players from Leicester and doing pretty well with them. Is James Maddison potentially a player that would be on your radar? Would you think Would that be a player that you'd want at Chelsea, or do you think it would be stick with what we have?
I still think stick what we have. I think even if Mason Mount leaves, I think we have way too many players. Depending on the formation we play next season, we still have way too many players in those 3-4 attacking positions, because you think you have to get Sterling in, Mudryk in, Felix in, potentially if he signs. We still have Madueke. We still have Nkunku to come in. There's still talks about signing a new striker. We still, at the end of the day, we still have the problem with Lukaku at the moment. We still have Ziyech, Pulisic, Odoi. Unless we clear that down quite a lot, there is still not enough space for any attacker to come in, really. I think, at max,
I'm
4
fairly
or 5
certain.
of them go.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain. Like, when we look at players that are due to leave, I think Ziyech, Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi potentially is probably going to go. Depending, you never know. I mean, he's coming back to a new manager. He left on loan under Thomas Tuchel, and he's coming back to Graham Potter. Graham Potter might think the sun shines out his arse, so he might be a player that might move across that right wing back position as cover for Reece James. But we also have Malo Gusto coming in from Lyon, who's signed in January, sent back on loan for 6 months to Lyon. There's the cover there. I think the more pertinent thing that we need to be looking at is that striker. That's that final product, because Kai Havertz, he has played better in the last 3 weeks, but he's not that out-and-out striker, and I don't think he wants to be that out-and-out striker. I think he wants to play either side of the striker. If we look at the season now, we have somebody in the centre, and it'll be Havertz and Felix just in behind. I think that's the area that he'd want to play. Off the top of your head, Charlie, if you think, okay, here's a striker that Chelsea need to sign, invest, we got whatever money we have, we're going to need to go buy a player. Realistically, who do you think, in your opinion, we should be aiming for? Kane, maybe.
Well, that'll never happen. Obviously, Kane would be the dream, but it'll never happen. But it's probably this Napoli guy, isn't it? I think that's the one that seems to be
Victor Osimhen.
Yeah, it seems to be. He seems to have the attributes that we're looking for, and he's played in the Champions League. He's played at the highest level. He's practically with it. He's an integral part of the Napoli team that are going to win this league this season. And it sounds like we're interested in him by all accounts. And he's I think they're banding around about 100 million quid, which I think he's quite young, isn't he? So that sounds about right.
I think he's like 23 or something along.
Which is 23, 24. So you get 5, 6. He'll sign a 7-year contract probably, and that'll be him done at Chelsea. But that's fine. And for 100 million, that's the going rate these days. It sounds like a lot of money, but that's the going rate, isn't it? And that's what we pay for Lukaku at the end of the day, isn't it? So.
We've paid it before. We've paid it again. We'll probably pay it again.
paid more for Enzo.
Buy away out of trouble in this scenario. Yeah, I think for me personally, when it comes to Chelsea, if we could get Harry Kane, He'd be a player I want because he's just proven. He just is. The problem is he's just not going to do that. It's very unlikely that a Tottenham player is going to sign for Chelsea, especially with Harry Kane. Even though he did grow up as an Arsenal fan, he is Tottenham through and through. For me, like Osimhen is very dependent on how Napoli do in the Champions League. I think if he wins Serie A, then he's very likely to go. So you think, okay, I've won Serie A, it's time for a new challenge. Champions League as well. I think if he wins the Champions League with Napoli, I think it further says, okay, well, I've won it with Napoli, won the Serie A. Does he then look? It depends on the type of player. Does he then stay, or does he think, okay, I need a new challenge? Does he want to try and build a dynasty and try and do it all again? For me, if we can't get Osimhen, the thing that I would go for is Ivan Toney. I think Ivan Toney is vastly underrated as a centre forward in the Premier League, just because he's come through from that. He's started at Newcastle, went to League Two, and then he's kind of built his way back up again. He's got through, moved across to Peterborough, and then to Brentford, and then up through, and he's just gradually got better and better. Yes, albeit he's a bit older. I think he's 27 years old, but he's a player that I feel will be a very good fit. And he's a bit of a dickhead, and I think Chelsea are missing a bit of a dickhead.
Yeah, but the problem with that, they'll never sign him while this court case is pending over him, because it's just not worth it. And because he could get a year-long ban, and that might not. And the funniest thing with that court case, it's pending, so it could be next year. So you might sign him, and then 6 months later, they go, "Oh, by the way, your court case is next week," and he's got to go off and go to court, and then he gets a 2-year ban or something. It happens, Sturridge got something like that, didn't he?
Yeah.
I know he got at least a year ban.
I think it was like 6 months. Yeah, I think Sturridge got like a 6 month one, but he got like a shorter ban. But I think
it depends on the severity, and I don't think anyone really knows the severity until it goes to court. He's not going to tell people what it is.
From what I remember, I think it was like 200 and something ish bets, but essentially it averaged out about. I was listening to Football Weekly podcast, but it averaged out to about two to 3 bets a week. Which in the grand scheme of things, isn't that bad. But the problem is he's betting on football, and he can't be betting on football. Like it's pretty much just like insider trading. Do you know what I mean? If he's betting on who's going to start a game or who's going to sign for Brentford, he's probably got inside information. You know what I mean? So
this is what I mean. I think it depends if he's betting on things like first throw-ins and things like that, and he's winning.
He boots it
all
out
the time.
Matt Letizia.
Yeah. Well, apparently Granit Xhaka was doing that, but that never. That's all gone quiet. But I heard that Granit Xhaka
allegedly
he was booting the ball out for throw-ins and things.
Caveat this, because it's streaming on YouTube. We have to allegedly say that he allegedly was accused of that. No, it's Matt Letizia famously was trying to beat that ball out at kickoff, and it was kept in play, wasn't it? And he was worried that he was going to lose a load of money. Temba, I mean, who do you think in terms of a striker bringing in? Do you think Ivan? Caveat: say for example, the ban is, push the court case forward. Ban is end of the season, you can't play. Oh, perfect. Chelsea in the summer. Ivan Toney, Victor Osimhen, or is there any other players you think? Do you know what? That's who we should go for to sort out our striking crisis that we haven't filled since Diego Costa.
Yeah, to be honest, I think I agree with the Osimhen shout. I think with how his form has been this season, he's got 21 goals in 24 games or something around that, and 4 and 5 in the Champions League as well. You can't really argue against that. Obviously, I don't like this whole idol thing, but his idol is Didier Drogba, and he said he wants to live up to him. So, why not bring him? Why not bring him in if that's what he aspires to be and who he aspires to sort of live upon? There's no better role model than Didier Drogba. We all know how much he means to us. So yeah.
The problem I think we do have, I think, is there's certain clubs that are looking in the market for strikers. Manchester United are looking for striker. Real Madrid are looking for a long-term replacement for Karim Benzema. Juventus are going to need strikers. I think Vlahovic is going to go at the end of the season as well. There are big clubs that are looking for strikers, and it's with the pull. Do Chelsea have the pull to try and beat Real Madrid to a signature? I think that's the issue that we might be having. I think secretly, what we hope we can kind of entice Real Madrid to say, do you know what? We'll give you a cut price on Romelu Lukaku if you just leave Osimhen and let us try and sign him. But I don't know the legality of that situation. It's a tricky one. It's a very, very tricky one. But Osimhen, I'd be very happy with him if he came through. He's clearly in form. And that's what we need. We need players that are going to be scoring goals. The only caveat that we do have to that is, it's not in the Premier League, and is he going to have that crossover? And we haven't had much luck recently in terms of signings that had that crossover appeal, moving from one league to another. So hopefully we can,
especially strikers.
Especially strikers.
I think strikers are strikers and goalkeepers are so hard to find. I mean, they are literally, those are the two positions that we need at the moment, and to find really good ones, we had like Czech and Drogba for 7 or 8 years, right? And we didn't realize how lucky we were, to have those two dependable players in those positions. But nowadays, it's just, if you look at the goalkeeper situation, we've never really had a good goalkeeper since Courtois. I mean, really. I mean, Kepa's come in. He's not really done a lot.
Yeah.
Mendy was all right for a bit. And striker-wise, like you say, Diego Costa was probably the last one that was any good. The rest of them have just all been flops and failures. So it's, I think it's very, very hard to find good strikers. And even in the Premier League, there's not that many really good ones when you think about it. Every club, Man United struggle with strikers. Man United struggle with strikers. They haven't got any. They've got that.
I mean, if Man United get Champions League, you're not think Osimhen might be thinking, well, I may as well step for Man United.
Kane. It sounds like Kane is going to go there. So which is good, obviously, for us.
Can I just say something about Man United, though? I think where it's different with them. I think even throughout their terrible years, one thing they've always had is goals. I don't think we've really ever had that for a long, long time. Even under Oli, Bruno would chip in with 10 goals. Rashford would chip in with 10 goals. Martial, I don't know if Ibra was there or whoever was their striker, Cavani maybe at the time. Yeah, they would be able to get goals just from attacking positions. I think that's something we've definitely struggled with. We've relied quite a lot on our defenders and wing backs to get us goals. I still, in midfield, we have players who score maybe twice or 3 times a season with Kovacic, Jorginho, and Kante. Obviously, Jorginho more because he was in charge of penalties, but we never really had much goal contributions coming from midfield apart from Mason Mount, really, and he didn't even play midfield. So, that central area of the park, I still think we kind of lack goals from. But then in our attacking positions as well, Pulisic maybe gets 7-8 goals a season. Havertz gets maybe 8-10 goals a season, and nobody really adds up those big numbers to be like, just take us out of games where you think we didn't deserve to win, but we won 3 or 4-0. Yeah. It's usually a struggle. We just about win 1-0 or hanging on with a 2-1, and it's something we do need, just a clutch player, I think.
Yeah, and I think back in the day as well, if you compare it to times gone by, where you had Lampard in the midfield and players like that, Lampard, Ballack, Essie, and even who would chip in with a lot of goals. I mean, especially Lampard. I mean, that would. I'm guessing that as a footballer, if you've got that threat from midfield, it distracts the defenders from what's going on behind them a lot of the time, and the midfielders from what's going on behind them. So it allows more space for the strikers. So probably because we don't have as many goals in midfield, it makes it even harder for the attackers to get space because there's no concern,
Yeah. I think especially just even outside the box, you see it a lot in the games when teams just sit off us and they're not scared that Kovacic is going to score every single time he shoots, or Kante or Jorginho is going to smash one into the top bins, just because they know they don't have that goal threat. You see it with Man City. If you give them chance at edge of the box, De Bruyne, maybe even Rodri, every so once in a while, Gundogan, someone's going to put it in the top corner or find an intricate pass through. With us, I feel like it takes a lot for us to build up and even create a chance anywhere outside the box. And it's something I think we severely have lacked for many, many years. And like I said, you'll maybe put on a Tottenham game or a Man City game and you think, oh, this is interesting. The opposition's putting a lot of pressure on them. Instantly, it's 1-0 Man City through a counter-attack. 5 minutes later, 2-0. Another 10 minutes later, 3-0, and the game's over. And you think, how have they just won that game? But with us, it feels like we need to struggle and grind to get 3 points. We don't get the easy 2 or 3-0 where we don't deserve it. I feel like we exuberate a lot of energy within 90 minutes to try even win a game, where we need to be kind of lethal. And like some people I've seen say that when's the last time we even scored a counter-attack goal? I can't remember the last time we've really sucker punched a team and just, we've taken the game away from them. And, the many times we used to play Arsenal, they used to play all the football. We would just sucker punch them, go on the counter and just score 1-2-0.
Yeah.
And they would be like, it's been something we've been missing for a long time. Since the Kante days, I'd say. We haven't really played on the counter or been able to make any counter attacks.
Yeah. Well, Dale here in the chat, he put, what about Ramos at Benfica? Done well in the World Cup, young and upcoming too. So, he's not a player that I've seen. It's not one I can comment on. I don't think I remember watching him play in the World Cup. But do either of you know of Ramos? Do you think he'd be a player that we can potentially take on?
I was talking to him about it, actually. His goal record at the moment looks insane. He's getting called up for Portugal national team, and he's starting every week as well. I'm sure he's got something like 23 goals in 25 appearances, something around that. He looks up and coming, but then it is the Portuguese league. How does that translate into the Premier League? Although players who have come from the Portuguese league tend to do well in the Premier League, so that is possibly something we could look at and be positive to see towards. Because players like Bruno Fernandes, even Pedro Porro started to pick up form in the Premier League now. We had Nemanja Matic, we had Ramirez come from Benfica, David Luiz as well, though it took him time to adjust. We've seen how well these players can come from over there in the Portuguese league and translate it well to the Premier League.
Yeah, I just hope there's not, if we do get him, I just hope there's not a fiasco again like the Enzo. I think Benfica probably put us on the blacklist after that.
There's no... game.
I saw it, Tom. You cut out there, mate. Can you hear me?
No, he's back, is he?
You can hear me, can't you, Tom?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Well, but I'll just finish it. But yeah. What I have to do is, like we've discussed the preview, that's probably not going to go as long as we usually do in this week. We will be back next Monday where we review Chelsea inevitably destroying Aston Villa 8-0. We've done it before, we'll do it again. See you guys next Monday evening at 9:30 p.m. Take care, chaps.
Cheers.
All right.
Bye.
Peace.